Hello, everyone. People are joining. Hey, Tariq.
Hey, Roop, do you hear me okay?
Yeah, can you hear me too?
Excellent.
I'm so sorry. You're going on vacation, I guess, right? From today.
Yeah. Yeah. After this call.
Interesting. Yeah, I'm sorry to uh get you at the end, I guess.
No, no,
How
I'm happy. I'm happy to come speak to you.
yeah,
Thank you for
how's the
having me.
weather in France?
The weather is very deceiving, so it can be very cold and very warm from one day to the next. You don't know if you're wearing something warm or a t-shirt and shorts.
Interesting. I don't know like what cold is for you, but here in Canada, it's like right now it's 20 degrees and it's hot for us. It's crazy. Yeah, we just got out of like hibernation literally like a month ago. So interesting.
Yeah, you look like you're at a Bahamas party. It's it seems very summer where you are.
Yeah, no, really, I'm just it's too hot, so I'm just like chilling, I guess. You're gonna wait one more minute for people to join and we'll just dive in. Everybody, hey, thank you for joining. If you guys can like put in where you guys are from in the chat, and we would love to talk more. Um, is the chat available? Let me see. Let's wait. Yeah, I guess we can start with some introductions and we can jump in. So hello, folks. Thank you so much for joining the Go-To Market Strategies event with us here. We have Tariq. He's commander in chief, I guess, at Cargo of IC company. They're doing a lot of great stuff. I'm Ru. I'm a growth person. I've done a lot of growth stuff. I grew a company called Nostra AI in the last 11 months. We grew from like nothing, 5 people team, CEO being a salesperson to right now they're like 30-person team. They're listed among the fastest growing SaaS startups in the like among the fast 100 like growing startups in the US recently with lead.co. I did a lot of strategy work for them. We created like a $5 million pipeline for them. They closed 3 million of it. They have more going on. So really crazy, interesting stuff. I also am a growth advisor at Ecom Stream. We grew a YouTube channel to like 17,000 subscribers there as well. And I'm a founder at and CEO at Start Growth Partner. We basically implement AI for the companies that we work with. We work with 250 plus e-commerce stores with a lot of SaaS companies like Cargo, and we basically cut their costs 30%. We do growth strategies that work with them. And one of the successful funnel that we have, we are not a marketing company, we are not a marketing agency. We basically have a funnel that we have mastered, which we rinse and repeat and implement for other companies. And we cut their costs. So like we are a growth company implementing AI and automation stuff. And yeah, I'll let Tariq take the stage and like please introduce, I guess, Cargo and your work and everything.
Sure. Thank you, Ru, for having me here. So my name is Tariq. I'm based in Paris. You'd probably tell I have this Pakistani mixed with American accent because that reflects sort of how I grew up. I'm right now based in France, and I've been one of the guys building Cargo for the last year. It's an automation tool built for growth and revenue teams, and what I usually spend most of my time on is working with sales teams and growth teams from Series A to Series C companies who have found some interesting playbooks that they think increase their ability to sell to the market. And they come to us to ask how they can implement it at scale. And so I'm talking to some of the cooler sort of sales and growth teams out there in the world, and I have a lot of sort of perspective on what works and what doesn't work. So Ru asked me to come here, and I'm very happy to sort of answer your questions and share our learnings over the last few months.
Yeah. You're kind of lowballing, honestly. So I'd like to let the chat know. So Cargo is like, they work with companies like billion-dollar companies like Gorgeous. They are like a huge industry leader in the e-com space. They work with companies like Nostra, where I was a growth leader. They work with us. They work with a lot of bigger companies, and they have done a lot of good stuff on like scaling growth and like strategies in terms of like lead generation for these companies, and they work with startups and like smaller companies as well. So yeah, I guess I'll start. Like I was going to, I'm a visual learner. I was going to make a presentation way and like give value to all the attendees in the chat, but I decided like you have a lot of insights, and like I can jump in, like get all of my insights out, and we can like make it interactive and answer questions and like what people are what bottlenecks they are facing, what they can do to scale, because there's a lot of like growing companies, 1 to 10 people team, less money, and like they want to grow, right? And we already have done it with, like, we have built funnels, we have scaled funnels with cutting costs and like growing their lead generation and like go to market strategies. So I would say, what are the trends that you are seeing currently in like the companies that you're working with? What are they doing that's helping them grow like really quick?
That's a good question. So we do work with large companies. So as I said, Series A and above, right? To build complex systems. But the paradox is that almost all of those companies have very small teams that do that orchestration bit. So what is usually happening is that a company can have large sales teams. We have some companies who have like 10 territories in 10 different countries, all containing BDRs and SDRs and managers and so on and so forth. But the people managing them, as in generating leads for them, telling them whom to talk to, what to say, are usually a team of 1 or 2 people maximum. And so this is the trend of the time, because the name of the game is using the data that you have available at your disposal, and then marrying that with the ideas that your people on the front line, so your salespeople, are giving you, and scaling that to create what we call workflows or playbooks or processes that can continuously bring you more pipeline, help you convert better, and so on and so forth. So that's the crux of the experience of that we've had over the last 12 months.
I would say the same thing. So when I started doing growth stuff for Nostra, it was just me, another VP of growth. There was no sales team. There was 1 or 2 people selling on the sales side, taking meetings. The CEO himself was taking sales calls. Okay, and there was like 2 people team. And I think one thing that newer companies and like startups also miss is they would have a 10 people team. If it's a product based like company, which is like product led growth strategy or something, they would focus a lot more of their resources on building the product, building more features, right? So they'll have a lot of engineers. What they would have is they would have like a CMO, a marketing person who would do marketing for them. But what I see working for companies that I work with is not just a marketing person, but like a growth team, right? Like a simple growth team with like a couple of people, somebody with an engineering background, who can like reverse engineer stuff, who can use data and scale on top of that, right? So like we did the same thing. I was a growth guy, I have an engineering background. I had another engineer on the team, and I was doing all the go-to-market stuff, like running A/B tests on like 5 different verticals and like testing a lot of different strategies at the same time. And like we were seeing a lot of results coming like out of some of those funnels. And what we would do is like we would just scale those funnels, right? So yeah, we saw a lot of similar stuff, and Nostra as well. And what I suggest to companies that have smaller teams is like, if you have a product, right, which has a market and everything is good, the marketing team should sell. Like everybody should do something. Like all of the marketing strategies should be around selling the product, and you should test as many verticals as possible. You should be doing social media. You should be doing some sort of like cold outbound, right, and see what's working. I guess the best example I would take here is PhantomBuster, a tool that we work with, and I realized that like tools like PhantomBuster, they don't have a sales funnel at all. What they have is an SEO strategy. They are killers at SEO. They figure out how to do it, right? And they're just scaling on top of that. I would ask a follow-up question to you on that, which is like, you're competing with one of the fastest growing companies right now called Clay, and they have a user-generated content strategy, right? That's working really well for them, and they're the fastest growing company that I'm seeing right now myself. And like, so how do you see their strategy, and like, how do you plan accordingly based on that?
Yeah. So look, just to give context to our users, what happened in the go-to-market / sales / growth space over the last few years, and Clay is an example of this because they were one of the early movers, was we had what we consider a no-code revolution, right? So a few years ago, a bunch of no-code tools came to the market, which basically promised to say, hey, you can do engineering-like stuff, like building applications and using data and automation, just like an engineer would, but without having to go to an engineering school and do years of experience, right? And the results were mixed, generally speaking. But we really saw a revolution in our space, which is, how sales and marketing people can do their job. And the reason is very simple. Number one, you have a lot of data. You're dealing with a lot of data tables lying around, and that data is very precious. So if you can derive the right conclusions from that data, you make more money. It's a no-brainer. The second reason is any given sales, growth, marketing person is using way more tools than they were 10 years ago. So Ru, you would have seen this in your own experience. You have 10 different tabs open on your browser. You have 10 different functions that each of those tools is doing for you. And you really see the benefit of it when you can merge the functions of different tools together to create a, what we call a process or a playbook. And so that's where the space sort of got built. And I think Clay, they did a good job of sort of moving into it. We're a bit different, so our positioning is different than Clay's. So Clay's is addressed to the open market, so anyone can use Clay to build what is similar to like a Google Sheet, where you can enrich your columns, you can send some emails, stuff like that. We are a step further, so we're doing the same, but for people who want more sophistication. So that means workflows that are way more complicated, and that needs data pipelines and infrastructure that can go to hundreds and thousands and millions of entries and so on and so forth. So that's the space that we're in, and we're not alone. There are more than two players. There's a bunch of players. The big difference has been that in the last 2 years with OpenAI and equivalent sort of LLM models, they've given a lot more ability to automate things than we used to have. And now the question that everyone poses to me, and I'm sure my colleagues in the space, they have the same questions, is, look, we have a hunch for what works. How can we convert that into sort of AI-generated, AI-driven pipelines and processes? And so that's the name of the game today.
100%, like correctly said. I would say the same thing. So what we were doing, like what I have done at Nostra and like EcomStream and all these companies that we work with, is if you have a product and like you have a product, you raise some capital, like a pre-seed company or a seed company, you have a team, so you have some sort of customer base, right? You have to scale on top of that. So what you do is you can use that data. Okay, enough of like general speaking. I'll give a strategy that like we literally use this. We use it on a later basis, like when we had like a lot of customers, but like the same thing can be done. So what we did is anybody can go out and like search for this tool. It's called Akio, AKKIO.com. Okay. Now what we did is this. Let's say you have some customers, you have like 10 customers, 20 customers, 50 customers, right? Gather a CSV of their data, like, hey, what was the customer acquisition channel? What was the customer acquisition cost? Where did you get the customer from? What is their industry? We did the same thing for Nostra using, so their customers were e-commerce stores, right? So what we did is like, hey, these are all the customer acquisition channels. We got them from a webinar strategy. We got them from an affiliate. We got them from an external referral. We did all of that. What was the cost? We ran an ad, let's say. So this was the cost. What's the industry of their e-commerce stores? Like, hey, they're an apparel store, right? How much money are they paying us? So we gather all of this data of the current customers that we already have. what we did is Akio.com. You don't even have to learn coding anymore, because there is so many cheap tools. Like this is like $50 a month tool, right? Akio. And you can just feed the data to it. And then I think this is another thing that like we were really good at, because like we had an engineering team, which we scraped 2.5 million contacts. So we have a database of our own of 2.5 million contacts, which is our target market. So we have a TAM database, right? So what we did is, hey, we created like a model being like, hey, this is all the customers that I have. This is all the channels we got them from. This is all the money like they're spending. Even if they churn, we give it to it like, hey, these customers churn and these did not, right? So what happens is if you compare it with a TAM database of 2.5 million contacts, you can create a lead scoring methodology. So like the 2.5 million contacts, you can tell the model, be like, hey, go score these leads for me. I want to target these people, right? It will give you such a good personalization of like who will convert, who's the best target, who will not churn. And this can be done, like we did it on a larger scale, but this can be done on a smaller scale. If you have 10 customers and you think that you have a data of another 1,000 that you think will convert, just go do something like this and like figure out of those 1,000, which 400 or 200 to go after, give more resources and time towards that, spend a lot of time on personalization. Like I would say, if you like write manual emails to 100 of them, right, there will be a lot higher chances than like spraying and praying, right? So we leverage data like that as well. Like I would ask you, have you seen similar examples of people using data to their advantage, and like how are people using like leveraging data on your end?
Yeah, sure. So I see it in a bit of a different way. I'm fortunate to speak to a lot of sort of smart people in the sales space that I admire. And the interesting insight that I've had over the last few months is the best people, they combine two different faculties or personas or personalities into one person. Being a good salesperson today, or a marketer, or a growth person today, means that number one, you are creative, and number two, that you have the ability to take manual processes and actions and turn them into something that can be scaled. And so what do those mean, right? And the first part about being creative is very similar to how you would approach being an influencer on TikTok or Instagram, etc., where the idea is to come up with innovative ways which would make people talk to you, which would make people admire you, respect you, and then because of the virtue of doing that, they would also think about your product, and it would drive sales. And this is not trivial. It's not a cliche. This is actually how I've seen some of our clients who make hundreds of millions of pipeline every year operate, right? So that's the first faculty. And I think the best people, they really understand, look, my job as a salesperson is to flirt with the market, to see what would incite people to talk to me, and then what I can offer them in terms of either value or conversation that can actually lead to them going down the sales pipeline and finally buying, right? That's the first part. Then the second part is, clearly, if you're a small team, you can continue to do a lot of manual stuff. And in our early days, we were for ourselves doing a lot of manual stuff in the same way, trying things out to see what works. And in there, you expose all of the different options that you have. So that can be, for example, pure outbound, that can be content-led inbound, that can be partnerships and user-generated content, as you mentioned, that can also be sort of webinars and events and so on and so forth. There's a long list of sort of growth tactics that you can do, and this is well documented. You can find this pretty easily. Then what you need to do is, once you manage to find what you really think will work and will get people to talk to you, how do you translate all the different actions that you were doing to get that to happen, but now do it at 100 times or 1,000 times the scale without reducing the quality? So that's the other part of a successful salesperson today, which looks a bit more like what an engineer or what a process person would usually be, right? So often I see both these personas combined into one person. Sometimes you see teams, and these can be small teams, where one person is more creative and more exposed to the market, and the other person is more process driven, right? Um, But that's the name of the game today. That's where I feel the people who do really well to use their sort of tools and data are managing to do.
Yeah, I would like to apologize to the chat. I just I just figured like the chat was disabled. I changed it. Right now everybody can. I'm sorry if you put something in the chat and we didn't see, but you can. Yeah, thank you, Matthias. I saw your message and thank you, thank you for that. You can put your questions, your insights, whatever you would like to ask. We'd like to address it. We'd like to make it more interactive based on your company. Feel free to put in. This is completely free. We don't really are trying to like sell products. The products that we are mentioning, Akio, we don't even we are not even affiliated with it. So we just used it. We'd like to give free value to companies that are growing. And yeah, and the same thing, I guess, you mentioned, right, Tariq, that like a lot of verticals that these companies are using. And we saw the same thing. Like I genuinely think that like if you are like a 1 to 10 people company, like there should be a lot of stuff that you're testing every single week. And like there should be like a lot of verticals, right? At the same time. And we did the same thing. Like we do the same thing everywhere, I would say. I would dive deeper into the next part of it, which is like, how are companies doing it before this AI and automation revolution, I guess, and how are they doing now? And like I have seen it personally. So luckily, I guess I had an engineering background, so I had some say before the AI thing came in, and like before automation, we were already doing it 2 years ago. But now it's like sales teams and like marketing teams are on steroids, right? Like they're just scaling like crazy. So I would say, what are the kind of automation that you are seeing? And like I would say in the salesy way, signals, right? Signals are the thing to talk about here. So what are signals that like you see on the sales side that like companies are using?
Yeah, sure. So there's two questions there, right? So um, the first question is what has changed with the AI revolution, right? I have a hot take on this. I feel like not much has changed fundamentally, but how you do things have changed. So fundamentally, the process is still the same. Number one, you need to figure out, what sort of content you need to put out there, either in a one-on-one or a one-on-many sort of interaction to get people to think about your product. And secondly, you need to think about how to get it to as many people as possible in the most efficient and qualitative way, right? So that has basically remained the same. It's just that now with AI, machines can do more of what you were doing before manually, right? So I'll give you an example. We've been working together on some webinars, so I know the amount of things you do to set up a webinar and to get people to come and generate and organize with the speakers and so forth. That's a lot of manual tasks that you need to do to pull off one motion, which is event based, and there can be other motions that you're doing on the side. Now a machine perhaps can do, maybe before they could do 2 out of 10 steps, now they can do 5 out of 10 steps, right? So that's the difference between before and now. um, the only thing that changes is the persona that was able to do this. You're an engineer, so you realize, before there were a lot of things where you had to write code and scripts to be able to make this happen, but now you don't. There's a lot of tools that are built for the user who doesn't write scripts and code, who can use a drag and drop interface and make that stuff happen. So that's the fundamental difference. It's called the next billion developers, right? Because I think the CEO of NVIDIA said a few months ago, what is happening now is in Gen AI is basically giving the ability to a large part of the population to write code-like things without having to write in code. So that's how I see the difference.
Yeah, no, you said it so perfectly, and I see this notion all the time. I was watching like the NVIDIA CEO literally yesterday on YouTube, and people right now are like in a teams and like people in general are like, hey, AI or like automation is just gonna take over the jobs, but I don't think so, right? So what I'm seeing is productivity is 10xing for companies that we are working with. We have funnels that work like the webinar strategy. So I don't want to boast about it, like, but I think we have mastered it. Like we have one strategy that is a killer that is generating like 200K ARR for Nostra every single month for the last 11 months, constant. That's how you get like 3 million AR, right? Like in a year, and become like the fastest growing company. And we rinse and repeat it for every other like company that we are working with. And what we are seeing is that strategy is cheap. Like it's so cheap, and there's only 2 people needed. How did we do it? We completely automated a lot of steps, and we killed it in terms of like reducing cost from getting data. We use Cargo, as you know, for like all that. There were so many steps. I'm just gonna make sure like the chat knows. In any funnel that you run, let's say you're running a cold outbound funnel, right? You need, first of all, let's say you have a list of 1,000 websites or companies that you are targeting. You need that list, right? You need data on those people. You need to get all the data. You need to check if the data is good. Then you need to check if there is somebody who's a customer already, right? You need to enrich the data. You need to then put the data on the tool that you're using. I don't know, you're using Smart Leads, you're using HubSpot, Apollo, whatever tool you're using, right? Then you need to set up a campaign. You need to do all of that. Then responses come in. You need to put the responses into Salesforce if you're using that, and SalesLoft and all of this. So there is so many steps. All of those steps are gone. Like we don't even worry about that, because we use tools like Cargo to completely automate those stuff. We like use Waterfall for like data. All of these stuff can be completely automated, right? I'm gonna take a question from the chat, which is like, what low-code tools would you recommend to use? So I would say like if you are a marketing geek, marketing person, I guess, who's doing social media and all of these stuff, generate content using Okoya. Okoya is a tool, OCOYO or YA, which is really good that we use for like generating blog posts and all of that kind of stuff. We kind of train our own models. So if you are like our customer, what we do is we take a lot of your data and we train models based on like what's working for you, and like we'll generate similar content. That's one tool. Another tool I mentioned is PhantomBuster, right? Which we use on our strategy on the LinkedIn side of it. So we do a lot of LinkedIn outreach, completely automated, no code, completely crazy working for us. I guess, Tariq, I would let you jump in on like some tools that people can use. These are cheaper tools. Like if you're a small team, you can just go out and like start reaching out to 100 people with these tools. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think again, I'm going to take a slightly bigger picture, and I think this will be helpful to answer this question. There are 2 kinds of tools out there that we can club into the low code space, right? So number one are the tools that create data. So for example, PhantomBuster, if you don't know, is a scraper that sort of goes to LinkedIn, pulls data out that you couldn't do otherwise, and then sends that to you, right? There's a bunch of equivalents that do the same. Then there are the tools that allow you to sort of process the data. Those are what we call orchestrators, right? And so for both of these, today you're lucky that all of these are available to you without having to write code, without having to be an engineer. The question is, which one do you want to use? And there you need to do research to see, okay, what exactly does your process demand, right? What is your need? And does tool A solve your problem, or tool B? So that's for data providers. The second for the orchestrators, so there's a bunch of tools that can talk to you depending on your level of sophistication, right? So a lot of people know about Zapier. There's an equivalent called N8N, which is slightly more complicated, so you can do slightly more complex stuff than Zapier. And so it speaks to a different market, so it's a different part of the value chain. Then you have something called Make. You have something called, which is more complicated. Then you have something called Cargo. You have Clay. You have Workato. So you can keep going up the sophistication chain, depending on what you're after. So if you club these tools to 2 categories and you try to find out what are the differences between them, if you rank them against each other, you'll find the ones that really speak to you in terms of what you need and what you can achieve. And then you have the answer to your question.
No, like 100% correctly said. And I would say like tools like Zapier, Make, and all of these are highly underrated right now. Because like if you don't have a development background, these tools are basically like a weaponry for you to create stuff that like needs some sort of coding, right? At the end of the day. And like these tools completely take it out of the box. I would give like one strategy kind of as I'm speaking that we did. So this is really like 2 years, 1.5 years ago. We had no customers. Like I literally joined Nostra at that time. And what we were doing is we are like, hey, this is something that I came up to my mind. I'm like 6 years ago when I was applying for jobs, right? People would what would you do, right? You'll just spray and pray. Like you'll apply to 1,000 jobs in a month, and like you hope somebody like responds, right? But now the time span of people has completely changed. We scroll TikTok 3 minutes, like 3 seconds. Like we don't even stay on the like on an app, which is really like keeping us hooked. But we have such less like concentration. So I decided, I'm like, hey, how do we have we want to reach out to 10,000 e-commerce stores. How do I make it personalized for them, right? So what we did is, at that time we didn't have tools. Like we didn't have like Zapier was not like a huge thing and whatnot. So we kind of built a bot, okay, which what the bot would do is, it would, if we give it a list of like 1,000 e-commerce stores, it would go and scroll for 1 minute on the website, basically, okay? And our product was increasing site speed, right? So what we did is we kind of created like a generalized voice model on, we have a video now of a bot scrolling. We didn't go and scroll like all those websites. We have videos of all of that. We took screenshots, okay? And what we did is we did an outreach to people, sending those videos with a personalized voice, basically, hey, I saw this on your website, you should change this, this, and this. Pretty simple. You can completely do this on Zapier right now. Like I would say, go on ChatGPT, take the same strategy. If you have customers, if you feel like, I don't know, 200 customers, go smaller, right? Let's say 100 customers. You don't have to do manually anymore. You can just go and tell ChatGPT, like, I want to do this. There will be some coding because I think this is a lot technical than I'm making it seem like. But this is just one of like thousands of strategies that like you can apply. Cold email is gone, right? For example, for this literal webinar, okay, there is 200 registrants that like registered all across our channels on this webinar right now that we are doing, right? What I generally do on my webinar strategy is this. We have emails of all you guys who are in the chat right now and like all the people who registered. I created like a model which basically goes and takes your website from after your email. It basically goes and summarizes your website for me. It gives me a summary of like small 100 words. Give me like what kind of company they are, SaaS, whatnot, right? And I basically sent like it yesterday morning, the same time, I went and I saw all these companies that are coming towards us. So I can prepare what kind of value to give to the companies, which companies can I help, right? So what I did is I cannot email everybody, right? I cannot like spend like 200 emails personalized. So what I did is based on the model, the ones that I see like I have a background in, I emailed some of you people. So it was not a choice. I generally spend like an hour on like personalized emails, but a lot of people, even in the webinar chat, not all of them, but a lot of them received like an email, which was written by me, like personalized, literally, like I wrote it myself. But the decision was made by like, hey, like I can't go and spend a lot of time on like all the companies, right? But I can like figure out that, hey, if it's a SaaS company, I have a background in that. If it's an AI company, we work with AI companies, right? So like I know like what to do in that. So I think
I can give you an example as well, Ro. So if you want, so this might be interesting for the audience. A couple of days ago, I was working with one of our clients who sells to restaurants, so restaurants with an online presence, right? And there they were looking for what we call signal, right? A signal to know who is a good person to talk to and what we can say to them, right? And so something we worked on together was if you scrape the first 15 comments of any restaurant that have been left by customers, right, you can generally tell what is their weakness. So it could be, I don't know, late service or stuff like that. And then if you look at the rating given on average by people, You can qualify whether you should talk to them or not. So if they have a very high rating, maybe you don't need to talk to them. But if they have a lower rating than 3.5, you can. Then you go and scrape, and you synthesize what you learned from that scrape, and you use that in your email, right? So how we discovered this was the client, they saw this doing some YOLO tricks and outbound by themselves, and they realized, okay, this can scale. So we built it together. And how we built it was, there's a couple of tools you need to use. So there's a tool you need to use to get Google results, which is called Serper. You need a tool to scrape websites and ratings, which is called Firecrawl, and then you need GPT or OpenAI to do the synthesis. And the three of them can be done within an orchestrating tool, just as what we did. And finally, you create your sort of email messaging, your icebreaker, and then you send it to an email marketing tool like Lemlist or SmartLead or Instantly, and so on and so forth. So this is a very concrete example of things that are done by experimenting and testing. And I can attest for the fact that already we can see results from setting up this workflow, where they're seeing more deals come into their pipeline, and they're seeing better conversions just because they were using the right messaging built on some information that is out there. So this is a very sort of emblematic example of what you can do today by leveraging tools and putting them together.
No, you said it like on point, which is like personalization is gonna change everything. Like the best example, Apple came out with like their new features recently, right? You saw that. It's basically like your personalized like an Iron Man suit, which has everything, right? Kinda. So like I think personalization will matter a lot, because people are like the market has changed completely. Like right now, a lot of people in the chat, a lot of companies that we work with, they have a product, they have a market, people want their product and everything, right? But they don't have a social presence. There is no face connected to it. I saw something yesterday from retention.com CEO, and I reposted it on my LinkedIn, and he literally said, he's like, hey, I'm a CEO of a billion-dollar company. I spend 75% of my time going on podcasts, doing events, talking to partners, webinars, and all of this stuff. And somebody commented below him being like, hey, you are a CEO. How do you spend 75% of the time? That doesn't make any sense. And like, how do you even measure what you get? Like, do you get leads out of it? How many did you get? Like, how do you measure what you are doing? So he's like it's unmeasurable, and it completely makes sense to me. I'm like, yeah, that it's 100% unmeasurable, because like what he's doing is he has a product in a market. He's just going out there and like saying that, hey, this is what we do, and I'm connected with this, right? So people feel a sense of like personalization coming out of like, hey, there's a CEO who's doing this. So I see a lot of like newer companies, 1 to 10 people team, product led or like growth led, any companies, they have a lot of times they have a focus on product and maybe like building more features for their present customers and like maybe more customers, right? So I would rather I would rather say that like if you have a successful process or a product which some people want and you think other people want, I would say go more on the selling side. Go out there, talk about the product. 5 posts a week is really less, but like you should post way more. Do personalization, tag your customers, being like, hey, free value, give them free value, and all of this would like completely change like the go-to-market game 100%. Yeah,
I think there's a very good question from someone in the chat about product-led growth. So you started talking about it. I think the only difference today for people who are really doing pure PLG versus a pure sales-led motion is that people who do sales-led motions talk to people one-on-one. So that could be in an email or a message or an outreach. Whereas people who do very pure product growth, they do one-to-many conversations. So that can be, appearing on social media, making content, appearing on events, getting talked about by other people who have an audience, and so on and so forth, right? And the real challenge there is to know what to say. And the only way to do that is through data, right? So you need to collect data about who is interacting with that content, what works better than others, and then you need to double down to see if you can, spike up your numbers. The second challenge is to know when you can actually talk to someone. So is it enough to talk to someone if they like the post? Is it enough to talk to someone if they downloaded one of your content? Or you have to wait for them to actually do something like sign up on your product and use it for 5 minutes before you go out to them? That's the second challenge. And both of those are data questions. So you need to be tracking very, very scientifically what happens with your content and your product, and make decisions based on that, on when to talk to people one-on-one versus one-to-many.
Yeah, I would suggest this for the same question posted on product-led startups. We work with like that's start growth partner. I don't want to like pitch it or anything like that, but that's what we do literally. So we understand like most seed or like pre-seed companies, they're trying to grow and what they're looking for. So if you don't have a huge sales or marketing team, that's the case for everybody. Trust me, like we're seeing this all the time. What they're looking for is one thing that works for them and that they can scale. But for that, they need to test a bunch of other things, right? So I would just say that like use some no-code tools, do a lot of content around it, do a lot of partnerships. Like if you are a product-based company, what are other products which are like that can be used together with your company? I don't really know what the product that you're mentioning is. If I knew, I would like be able to tell more. But yeah, like if it's all engineers, I would say get like some strategy of some sort of partnerships and marketing going on, and backlinks. Like if you're a product-based company, you're working with other partners, ask them to post about you. Be like, hey, tag us on LinkedIn and like post it everywhere, right? This can be a start of testing what's working on, and then you'll like if something works on, you'll just be like, hey, maybe I'll try SEO a little, I'll try this a little, and something will work on, and you can scale on that. What we do is like what we realize is there's a bunch of marketing agencies out there. There's a bunch of ad agencies which will pitch to companies like yours or like other pre-seed companies, be like, hey, let me run social media for you, let me run content for you. And we realize that it's too general, it works and it doesn't work for people. So what we are is like, we are a growth agency. We have one funnel that we killed on, and we don't want to, we can do a lot of other stuff, but what we do is we have one intent-based strategy, a webinar event-based strategy, which we scale companies on, and which we create a lot of other funnels around them. So what we do is like we create a lot of content around it, we create a lot of partnerships around it, we create a lot of like community stuff around it. So like we do a lot of that, and anything works, we just scale. Like let's get more money, and like let's just scale that if that's working, right? So yeah,
there's a very good question, Ru. Sorry to cut you off. I think there's a few questions that we can answer in the chat. Do you want to start taking them? Should I, or do you want to start?
You can for sure.
So there was one by Pranchal, which I really liked. So how do you hire your first sales marketing guy in the company when you have a tech background and don't have much budget? This was interesting because, in fact, if you look at YC promos, a lot of startups are built by like technical founders who know very well the space and the product they want to build, but in terms of go to market, they have less information, and so they need to hire people like that who can fill that gap. Everyone will give you different responses on how you do this. And my hot take is, if I was to have a small business or a new company and hire that first sales marketing guy, I'd see how much pull they have, right? So it's the exact same equation as getting someone to do an influencer sort of campaign for you. When they talk about the problem that you're solving to the people that you need to buy your product, do people listen to them? How much impact can they make? How much of a splash they can make talking about it? That's the number one criteria for hiring a sales and marketing guy today. The second criteria is how comfortable are they with experimenting along all of the different channels and all of the content types that we've been mentioning for the last few minutes, so that they can find the winning one, right? And so once they do, so if they have pull, and if they're good with experimenting, then your job as a technical or the engineering person is to convert that into something that can scale 10x, 20x, right? So that's how I would approach the process. Ru, you've worked in a lot of small companies, so maybe you have something interesting to share as well.
No, like you said it perfectly. I have a different, I guess that's how we got connected. Like, I don't know if you saw that and like my team, I guess. But like the same thing as he mentioned, what every like founder early stage should look for is pull. Be like, hey, if I have a marketing person on my team, what are their like KPIs is not a really good word that I like to go after, honestly, for early stage startups, but what is the value coming out of them, right? And like how much can they scale on their own if there's one marketing person on the team, or like if there's none, then like you should definitely go out and like look for one which can like how much like how are they in their approach on their go-to-market side, like how much value can they generate overall. And the point is the value shouldn't be like measured in terms of in early stage. I would say it should be measured in terms of like partnerships, more noise around your company, and stuff like that, because that converts at the end of the day. So like that's what we are based on, like that's what like we kind of think on the other side, which is like, hey, it's a new company. They have raised, let's say, pre-seed right now. They're not just looking for new customers. What they're looking for is if they have a lot of noise around them, they can raise another round. They can scale, or if they get a lot of interest, they can like change tweaks and like make changes in their product feature, or like get more customization going on, right? So I would say that's what like we kind of focus on, and I love and I love that you mentioned that. Let's
There's
say
another question, Ru, by the way. So there's one called by Nicola, which I really like as well, if you allow me to take it. So the question is, how do you think we can expand our accounts with two pharmaceutical companies and develop more business, right? So this is an interesting question because so far we've been talking about like younger startups who do like social selling and experimentation. This is sort of the more typical startup-y kind of selling to smaller accounts and so on and so forth. What you're referring to in this case, Nicola, is more something that resembles enterprise selling, right? And this is a different ballgame. The fundamentals are still the same. So it's still about talking to people and getting them interested with your value proposition and observing data around it. It's just that what will trigger a purchase is not necessarily what the value proposition is. That I think that's a necessary but insufficient condition. What really drives upsells and penetration into enterprise accounts is understanding the relationships of people who make decisions, right? So we see some of this as well with our clients who sell to enterprise customers. They spend a lot of time understanding who wants what in the organization. And sometimes you see examples which are completely funny. The same company will buy the same product 5 different times at 5 different prices because 5 different teams want to use it in a different way and they don't want to work together on it, right? If you understand what drives those relationships in the enterprise account, you can sort of manipulate that to get more penetration for your product into the company. The second thing is in enterprise, people move around a lot. So the industry, for example, in pharmaceutical, I imagine is also very concentrated. So the same people who worked in pharma company A would probably be working 5 years later in pharma company B. They've probably worked before in pharma company C. So use people's past and links to build some rapport with your first customer and use that to go back to their previous employer and so on and so forth, or the people they know to get similar accounts. So it's more of a sort of tribal herd-based buying process than what you see for like smaller accounts and like more classic startup kind of products.
Yeah, just to add quickly on that. So we work with a huge like healthcare company in the US. We did some automations for them. We can't really say it because of confidentiality, but the same thing that you mentioned, right? We did a lot of like content and like pushing around a healthcare company that we were working with. We got an external referral. Be like, hey, we work with these guys. There's another company, and boom. So like the funnels like intent-based like outreach process would help you create new funnels that you don't even like plan to doing, but like it will get you a lot of customers like that. So I completely like love that. And in terms of AI companies, I would say if there's like any AI company here, we have a community of like growth people, investors and stuff. Pretty like private community. I would send everybody like a link after the event to join if you are interested. There's a lot of growth people. You can chat there. And what we do is we also have a YouTube channel with like 17,000 subscribers that we grew to. So we get speakers and like founders, CEOs, C-suites, and like interesting industry folks who have like a lot of knowledge on like how AI and automation and like their product, what they're doing, and how it's impacting their industry. So completely free, you can get exposure there. I would send like a link on that as well. I'm just gonna put any more questions if you guys have in the chat. I'm gonna take one more. Yeah, we are building an audio intelligence company. We have an AI model for speech and audio enhancement. We are building content creator app on intelligence suite for content center.
I think it's from Pranchal, right? So I think because we all already took his question, he's just explaining what he does. I think that's why he's mentioning this. There's another question from Matthias, which is interesting. So how would you recommend we tackle growth target in a low income country that isn't digitalized, right? So I'm guessing you mean there's not that many people who are opening their emails, and there's not that many sort of, motions that you can use there. I'm not sure if I'm saying something very generalized here, but I've seen some interesting stuff in Asia. So in Southeast Asia, you don't sell the normal way. The processes are very different, and how people make buying decisions is very different. So number one is very relationship oriented. So I feel like the people who do well manage to locate people with great networks, and always the buying decision is seen as some sort of favor. So you do someone a favor and they respond in kind, and so on and so forth. So that's how I've seen like successful sort of salespeople tackle market in Southeast Asia. I don't know, Matthias, if that is reflective of sort of the reality that you're referring to, but I think that's an interesting insight. The second thing that I've noticed as well is, whereas we sell like email marketing solutions, we recommend email marketing solutions to our clients doing like more traditional sort of upper income country markets. In like a Southeast Asian market, what we do is we've seen people automating stuff on sending Instagram messages and WhatsApp messages. And the other day I was speaking to someone who wanted to do more automation around WeChat, which is very, very difficult to automate because they have so many restrictions, right? I feel like the process is similar. You need to get content into people's ears and eyes, but you need to be more creative in how you can get to them, right? So either that's because someone knows you and likes you, and or you use the means where they are present. Even if the country is not very digitalized, they still might have good mobile phone penetration, and they're using tools and apps where you could be present. That was an interesting question to take. I hope that was helpful what I said.
Yep. Interesting. Yeah, we are almost at an hour. If you guys have any more questions, feel free to put them in. We'll do some final thoughts here. I guess Tariq, you can go in and like say what's working on, some final thoughts.
Yeah, I think the lingo in town right now is signals. And I think it's very easy to sort of overlook what is the reality behind this term, right? And we use it very promiscuously. But it's funny because if you think about it from a very sort of philosophical perspective, selling is essentially going into conversations with the expectation that people will say no. So the default is to get a refusal. And all a signal is doing is basically telling you, is there a potential chance that if you say X at Y time, you might not receive that no, but a yes, right? And so as a salesperson, you want to spend as much of your time as possible focusing on people who are more likely to say yes than more likely to say no. Right? Especially in this time when there's so many people initiating conversations, there's so much content being produced, all of us are overloaded, our inboxes are completely full, right? If I'm not receiving a proposal or value proposition at the right time, which is saying exactly what I need to say, I'm less likely to say yes to it. So I feel like it's still a bit of like jargon in small circles, but we're going to see a lot more use of this concept called signals. And all of that is linked to using data and tools better to get to find out what the signals are, and then to use them in your sales process.
Yeah, love it. Summarize it in terms of signals. And I guess that's where like we come in, where like we get those people in the beginning to get those signals. right? So that's what our strategy is based on. It's like just a bunch of stuff. We have a successful funnel running for Cargo. We have a successful running for Nostra AI. I have a couple of other companies that I'm a growth advisor on, which are AI companies, edit on the spot. They do editing, like there's so much crazy stuff going on in AI. It's funny. Yeah, I guess all of these companies are selling to enterprises that we are working with. They're selling to like B2B and like all of these. One thing which is working for all of them that we are seeing is intent-based selling. Everybody knows right now how crazy it was, and I guess in the last year, the podcast setting, if you know, like everybody with a mic has a podcast now, right? And that's that's something that what we are seeing on the founder side. Like LinkedIn is also popping up. Like I'm seeing 4 of like founders on our board are going to podcasts and events like that, right? And this is crazy. We just closed Forever 21, okay, for Nostra, I guess, last month, and it came like that. Like we went to an event. They came to like a webinar sort of event to launch some conversion rate optimization, made some connections, external referral, and like boom, Forever 21 closed, right? So enterprises are also like nobody is ahead of the curve right now. This is another interesting point, which is like everybody is trying to use AI and automations. So everybody's learning, but like the companies which are using it, they're scaling really quick. And I work with sales team on from Reddit. We work with growth guys. You remember G Kabane? I guess he's working with Ramp and all these companies. And like the ideas that I'm hearing from all of these companies that I'm connected with is like the crazy stuff that they are doing. Like so many interesting ideas that are popping up with like automations and all of this stuff. So yeah, I guess intent-based strategies, a lot of testing, get some customers in, use that data, and then Tariq comes in, I guess, with the signals, and like they take over and like scale based on that data, right? So
It's actually a very good question, Ru, from Philip. If you allow me, we can take it just before you finish. So we have a couple of minutes. Is that fine for you?
yeah, for sure, yeah.
So Philip says, bouncing on the enterprise question, how can a startup looking to expand to a foreign market establish credibility and trust? This is a very interesting question. I think it's very similar. First of all, you need to know people who have pull, right? So in that foreign market, who are the people that are close to your potential customers, right? They might be your initial customers who will bring more customers, or just people who can influence those customers, right? Number one. Number two, you need to know how to get those people with pull to like you and do stuff for you, right? And that's where the sort of creativity will come in. And if you want an example, so Cargo is an American company with very strong French DNA. And at some point, we realized that that was a very good sort of lever for us to go and talk to people in large American organizations and sign them as clients, because every large organization had French people inside, right? So we had a lot of success using our French DNA to first talk to those people, right? And then those people would serve as conduits to open up further conversations with with potential buyers and so on and so forth. You have to be creative and find these two levers, and then you'll probably have success. And I wish you good luck in doing that, Philip.
Yeah, if there's any more questions, we would love to take one more. We have a couple of minutes, but if we miss anything, feel free to book some time on my calendar. I'm not on vacation. I look like it, but like feel free to like book a time. We can do like a free one-on-one quick 30 minutes on like what strategies you can implement for your company specific. And if you have any questions for Tariq, I put his email in the chat as well, so you can reach out to him as well. Yep, thank you, Nicholas. And yeah, I will be sending a follow-up with links of the recording and the community if anybody would like to join, I guess. Any more questions, I guess? Thank you, Matthias.
I think we're good to start wrapping up. So thank you, Ru, for having me. It's always a pleasure talking about sales and growth topics, right? We tend to have a lot of brainstormings. I hope people in the chat found our conversation interesting. You have my email there in the chat. You can also reach out to me on LinkedIn. I respond to all of my emails, and I try to respond to all of my LinkedIn messages. So feel free to reach out, and if I can be helpful in any way, don't hesitate.
Yep, same here. Feel free like to book a one-on-one. We can like have a chat on like strategies that like we can implement, or what's working for you and we can scale. And yeah, we do these webinars, I guess, every kind of 2 weeks. We have another big one coming in a couple of weeks. Probably 100 brands on e-commerce will be there. So yeah, if you would like, I can send another invite to everybody. We bring interesting speakers on the event. And I'm sorry to keep you waiting, Tariq. I guess you were gonna go cycling. So I would let you go enjoy your holiday. And yeah, we'll talk about it later. Cool. Thank you so
All
much.
right. That was fun. Thank you, Ru. Thank you.